Welcome to Is Mitch. I am on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe, support the channel, comment, like the videos. Appreciate any and all support as I always say, build the channel up. Packers-Titans Sunday, noon kickoff on Fox. Of course, we've dove into that matchup in a couple of videos earlier this week. Released one of these last Friday, wanted to do it again this Friday, sort of a look around the landscape of the NFC North, see how the other three teams, the Packers' rivals, have been doing, some notes, things to watch for those other three squads, the Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings. I don't remember who I started with last week when we did this, but let's start with the Bears. We'll start with Chicago. Final score not indicative last Sunday night for them, how dominant Houston was at times against them. Now, the Bears defense really buckled things down against the Houston offense. If I'm not mistaken, I think Houston only scored 3 points in the second half against the Bears, and we saw them in week one trail the Titans 17-0 in the first half, and then they gave up no points in the second half at all to the Titans en route to a 24-17 win. Not really the story of this one, though. The story, the headliner, this offensive line for Chicago, they have the potential to ruin Caleb Williams. And well, I don't know if I should even phrase it that way, because I feel like when you say something has the potential, it's usually supposed to be in a positive light, but this offensive line has the potential. I'm going to say it that way. They have the potential to ruin Caleb Williams. It's been that bad, that disastrous of a 2-week stretch for the Bears offensive line, trying to protect their rookie quarterback, their number one overall pick out of the University of Southern California. How about this number for you to sort of chew on and then digest? The Bears have allowed quarterback pressures on 43% of their passing plays. I'll say it again. The Bears have allowed Caleb Williams to be pressured on 43% of their passing plays. Now, that number's extraordinarily bad. Somehow, it's only third worst in the NFL. When I saw that number, that he's been pressured on 43% of his passing plays, I thought there's no way anyone's beating that through 2 weeks. Well, shout out to the Tennessee Titans and the New England Patriots, who haven't done a great job of protecting Will Levis or Jacoby Brissett. If you want more on the Will Levis side of things and the Titans offensive line, go watch the video from yesterday where I gave final thoughts and things to watch for in the Packers-Titans matchup. But Caleb Williams hasn't been brilliant. A lot of that, in my opinion, due to the offensive line up front. Hasn't helped his own cause. Hasn't helped his offensive line either. He is somewhat of a mobile quarterback. We saw it at USC. He's tried to show those flashes with Chicago. There's been instances in both games so far this year for Caleb Williams where he's actually spun around and been facing the other way for a second or more, tried to run backwards to then turn around and run forwards again to elude some pressure. Hasn't worked out either time against Tennessee or Houston in these first 2 weeks for Chicago. So it's been kind of a disaster up front. Now, they beat the Titans week one, and I've long said winning can mask a lot of problems. It really can. I don't care if it's basketball, baseball, football, hockey, lacrosse, rugby, volleyball, whatever it is. Winning can mask a lot of issues. And that offense looked pretty dreadful against the Titans week one, despite winning 24-17. They had a pick six in that game. They had a punt block return for a touchdown in that game. The offense didn't do much. Caleb Williams had less than 100 passing yards against the Titans. Was it better week two against Houston? I mean, yardage-wise, yes for Caleb Williams, but overall grand scheme of things, no. He and DJ Moore still don't seem to be on the same page. Rookie with a wide receiver is in his prime. That's going to take time to sort of develop that timing between those two. But there were a couple of timing routes and timing passes where the two just weren't on the same page. DJ Moore, quite frankly, I'll say it, looked pissed off at different junctures of that game in the second half, both on the sidelines and coming off the field, look pissed off. And the offense has been bottled up in a big way for Chicago. Small sample size, 2 games, I get it. Hasn't looked good, though. I still think Caleb Williams turns it around. I've been a believer of his going back to his days at USC. I think he's too gifted, too dynamic, too good of a talent to not turn into something pretty dang good. Now, if you're going to go somewhere as a quarterback, even with all the talent in the world, and fail, no offense, Chicago, Cleveland, the Jets, those have been, the Panthers, those have been destinations recently where, and really not even so recently, you can date back years and years and decades for the Bears and the Browns especially. It's been quarterback hell for those two franchises. So if there is a landing spot where it just doesn't seem to work out, Chicago has been one of those destinations. I do find it fascinating. This is not supposed to be a jab, but Bears fans before the year, I saw it all over Twitter. I saw it all over social media. Bears fans were touting far and wide. They were yelling far and wide that no rookie quarterback has ever entered a better situation than what Caleb Williams was entering in Chicago. And when you looked around, you're like, well, they got DJ Moore. They traded for Keenan Allen. They used a first-round pick on Roma Dunze. They brought in DeAndre Swift. They have Cole Kmet at tight end. You're like, yeah, pretty good weapons. Didn't mention the offensive line. Now, that group has time to turn it around, figure it out. Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, he's a big part of that. He's going to have to figure things out in unison with that offensive line and Caleb Williams to try to put the pieces of the puzzle together in Chicago. But those people that were saying, man, no rookie quarterbacks ever entered a situation better than what Caleb Williams is entering in Chicago, they've been pretty quiet after that showing last week. They forgot to mention the offensive line, which has been just absolutely dreadful so far. I do think if Chicago wants to contend for a playoff spot, some of you might laugh or scoff at that after what we saw in week 2, but keep in mind preseason odds, the Bears to make the playoffs were only plus 130. So the odds makers thought this was a really good Bears team on paper, and I think they do have a really, really good defense. And Matt Eberflus is taking care of that side of the ball, but you're the head coach. You have to have all the bases covered, and that offense needs some work, and it needs some fixing rather quickly. But if the Bears are to really try to make a dent and prove themselves as worthwhile of being in consideration for a playoff spot, once we get to week 15, 16, 17, 18, their damage is going to have to be done in the first half. And the one big glaring reason I say that is the schedule. Compare the first half of Chicago's schedule to the second half. In the first half, still for Chicago, they'll play the Colts, the Panthers, the Jaguars, the Commanders, the Cardinals, the Patriots. Now the Colts, I don't think are a bad team. Cardinals, I don't think are a bad team. Patriots, Commanders, I don't think are bad teams. Jaguars, Panthers, I don't know. Point being, those are all winnable games for Chicago, and a lot of them come at home at Soldier Field. Compare that to the back end of the schedule, where the Bears play the Packers twice, the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. If they want to get their licks in and stack up some wins and try to figure this thing out, it's going to have to happen in the first half. I'm not saying the Packers are going to beat the Bears twice, the Lions are going to beat the Bears twice, the Vikings are going to sweep Chicago, but the back end of that schedule is noticeably tougher than what the Bears have in the first half. And so they're going to have to figure this thing out quickly. They're going to have to figure it out on the fly, try to find solutions. That defense can only hold up so much. It is a really good, stout, sound defense for Chicago, but the offense is going to have to contribute in some form or fashion. Haven't really done so through 2 weeks. Bears sit at 1-1. And this week they have the Colts. So we'll see. I believe it's on the road. I believe they're in Indianapolis. So Chicago, pretty quiet this week. That offensive line was terrible. Mitch, I am on YouTube. Please subscribe, leave a comment, like, interact with the videos however you can. Appreciate all the support. I'm happy for Sam Darnold. I am. That's a guy who was drafted into a terrible spot in New York with nothing around him, terrible coaching at the time. Then got casted off, went to Carolina, another terrible spot. It's been a revolving door at head coach for Carolina for the last, 5-6 years. Didn't have much to work with around him on the offense in Carolina either. And so Sam Darnold kind of was forgotten about. Spent last year as a backup at San Francisco, now in 2 starts with Minnesota. After they signed him as a free agent in the offseason, Sam Darnold's balled out. Yes, he's balled out in 2 games against the Giants and the San Francisco 49ers. Dude was put in one crappy spot after another. Where you get drafted to, and he got drafted to the New York Jets, that's, fairly out of your control unless, you're Deion Sanders making demands for your kid coming out of college that he's not going to go to this team, this team, this team. I think Deion Sanders says he has 5 teams that are allowed to draft his kid, Shedeur Sanders, once he enters the NFL draft next year. Those instances are few and far between. Very rare, right? Eli Manning, another one that comes to mind. But Sam Darnold, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, including, a 97-yard bomb to Justin Jefferson. Against San Francisco's defense, nothing to scoff at. Nothing to scoff at. Now, on that back end, sometimes there's been questions with San Francisco in the secondary the last couple of years. That's still a hat tip for Sam Darnold. That's a really, really good afternoon against a team that, was coming out hungry, trying to get to 2-0 on the season. But like I still believe in Caleb Williams after a couple of really abysmal outings to start his career, like I still believe that he will turn it around. The exact opposite for Sam Darnold. Not the exact opposite, but 2 really bad outings for Caleb Williams. I still look at that and I say, I think he's going to figure it out. I think the Bears are going to figure it out. I think he's going to be a pretty damn good quarterback. I do. Vikings are off to a 2-0 start. Sam Darnold has looked lights out at times. I still don't think he's a quarterback that's going to lead a team to a Super Bowl, even if he has immense talent around him. And he has really, really good talent around him on that offense for Minnesota. I still don't think he's a guy that's going to lead a team to a Super Bowl. And isn't that the goal? 2-0 start, it's great if you're Minnesota. But who views them as an upper echelon team right now in the NFC? I don't think many do. Now, if he goes out and lights up Houston this week, I might have to reevaluate. I might have to backpedal a little bit. I still don't think Darnold's a guy. If the goal is to win a Super Bowl, and maybe deep down in their heart of hearts, if you asked Kevin O'Connell, if you asked the front office in Minnesota, like, hey, is the goal to win a Super Bowl this year? They probably would have said, it's more of a shifting period. Kirk Cousins was there for quite a few years. He's now gone. You drafted J.J. McCarthy in the first round, but he's out for the year. Darnold probably would have started anyways, but Darnold's sort of the transition quarterback as you get McCarthy ready. Now you're off to a 2-0 start. Expectations raise. Whether it's in that building, outside that building, within that fan base, expectations raise a little bit when you start 2-0, and one of those wins are against San Francisco, and your quarterbacks look pretty damn good through 2 weeks. Still don't think that's a team that's, when it comes down to it in January, maybe they get into the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised by that whatsoever. Still don't think it's a team that you're going to put in the same category as a San Francisco in the playoffs, as a Detroit, maybe a Philadelphia, maybe a Green Bay. I don't think Minnesota's going to be in that category. It's not a knock on Sam Darnold. He's been really, really good through 2 weeks. I just don't think he's that type of quarterback. I really don't. The schedule ahead will be really telling. I mentioned they play Houston this week. After Houston, they're at Green Bay. Then their neutral site, I think it's a London game against the Jets. Then they play at home against the Lions, and then at the Rams. Think about that schedule upcoming. I think most people would agree Texans are a playoff team. I think most people would agree when Jordan Love's healthy, the Packers are a playoff team. I think most people would agree the Jets probably a playoff team. Same with the Lions. Rams, very slow start, 0-2. Injuries across the board, don't know about them. Point being, that schedule is really tough for Minnesota, starting right now this weekend, really starting last week against San Francisco. We'll find out even more about Sam Darnold and that offense. We will. And I'll tell you what's scary about Minnesota. If you're a Packers fan, if you're a Bears fan, if you're a Lions fan, it's Brian Flores' defense. I rang this bell last week, and I'll go right down that well again. 6 sacks of Brock Purdy last week, including a forced fumble and a recovery. They had 1 interception. Quite frankly, if you watch that game, Minnesota's defense probably should have had 2 or 3. Gave up a lot of yards, didn't give up a lot of points. You want to classify it as bend, don't break, that's fine. I think the game flow really dictated that. San Francisco playing behind most of the afternoon, trying to play catch up with Minnesota, led to them getting a lot of yards. Minnesota maybe, not wanting to get beat deep to let San Francisco get right back in it with a big chunk play. San Francisco racked up the yards, didn't rack up the points, only scored 17 against that Flores defense. I'm interested to see how this team responds when they're faced with some adversity in game. Haven't had too much of that through 2 weeks. Haven't had too much in-game adversity. I'm interested to see that offense led by Sam Darnold when that happens, and it will. Could be this week against Houston, could be next week against Green Bay. It'll happen sometime in the near future, and then we'll see kind of what the Vikings are. Finally, you have the Lions. Not worried about Detroit. And when I say that, I mean they're going to be fine. Detroit's, I think Detroit's going to be fine, but they will be. They will be. They lost to Tampa Bay last week. The reason I pause there is Jared Goff is off to a very, very inauspicious start. A very bizarre, slow start for Jared Goff, especially when you dive in to some of the numbers and what they're telling us about Jared Goff. I was reading an article on prideofdetroit.com. Jared Goff, I'm not spilling any secrets here, throughout his career, whether with the Rams, with the Lions for a couple of years now, he has been a very, very below-average quarterback when he faces pressure, especially when the pressure is coming right up the middle. Now, most quarterbacks, their numbers are going to dip when they're facing pressure. Comes with the territory. Goff's numbers really tail dive. That's the difference. He's been really porous, and he's not really a mobile guy. He's not really a guy that's going to dance around, get outside the pocket, extend plays too much outside of the pocket when things get flushed to his right or flushed to his left. And we know this. He's still a really good quarterback, but doesn't do well under pressure compared to other quarterbacks when they're facing pressure. The reason I paused earlier, through 2 weeks, the problems for Jared Goff have actually been when he's had a clean pocket. When he's had a clean pocket, the numbers haven't been great. And that's the bizarre part. That's the puzzling part. And if you're a Lions fan and you do glass half full, you'll say it's just 2 games. Against a Rams defense, Bucs defense, typically pretty good. Fine. I'll accept that point. But the numbers are what they are through 2 weeks for Goff, and it does lead to some head scratching. This is per Pro Football Focus, per PFF. Last year when Jared Goff had a clean pocket, I'm not going to try to drown you with too many numbers, but just try to take these ones in. Last year when Jared Goff had a clean pocket, 28 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 116.1 passer rating, a 94.5 PFF grade. That's with a clean pocket. This year with a clean pocket, no touchdowns. I know it's only 2 games, but 1 interception. Last year, the passer rating was 116.1 with a clean pocket. This year, it's 74.0. Last year, the PFF grade with a clean pocket was 94.5. This year, it's 49. And so you ask the question, like, have the Rams and Buccaneers simply just done a marvelous job at mixing up coverages? Jared Goff and head coach Dan Campbell did mention post-game press conferences last week, hey, when you face Tampa Bay's defense, you know they're going to mix things up well. They're going to disguise things. They did that against us. Maybe it is as simple as that the Rams and Tampa Bay just did an elite job at mixing things up and sort of fooling Goff even when he had a clean pocket. But those numbers through 2 weeks are pretty troubling. Obviously, time to turn it around and figure it out and be the Jared Goff we think he is when he's got a clean pocket, but it hasn't been good so far. And the weapons are aplenty on this offense. The offensive line's really good. I would assume Jared Goff snaps out of it, right? Like, would assume he does. I can't imagine he's taking that big of a dip. He's still, in quarterback terms, relatively young, like in the prime of his career. Detroit's at Arizona this week. Not as easy. Not easy at all. 2 weeks ago, you looked at Arizona before the season started, whether you're playing them at home or on the road, and you're like, oh, that should be an easy win. That's a team with a lot of questions going through a rebuild. Arizona gave Buffalo all they could handle in Buffalo week 1, and they just beat the ever-living crap out of the Rams last week in Arizona. I don't think it'll be an easy matchup for Detroit this weekend, so we'll have to see. As for the Packers, we'll wrap it up quickly with Green Bay because most of the other videos are all Green Bay talk. Jordan Love practiced again Thursday. This time practice was in pads. He was out there going through drills. Saw a lot of Twitter clips. He looked normal, right? And that's probably the best thing you can say. He looked normal. Matt LaFleur said he was limited. He said he was limited again, every time he was asked something about Jordan Love. We'll have to see later on today when the reports come out. I would assume he's questionable. I think LaFleur said they'll give him up until 90 minutes before kickoff against Tennessee on Sunday, which means he truly could be a game-time decision. Jaden Reed, Elton Jenkins back at practice for the Packers on Thursday. That's always a good sign. This sounds weird, but I'm fine either way with quarterback on Sunday. I know that sounds really weird. You want Jordan Love out there. Let me say that. You want Jordan Love out there. You're a star quarterback. You just paid him all this money. Obviously, there's no quarterback controversy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm fine because there's a roll the dice mentality here, and Malik Willis, shoot away any talk about this being a revenge game because Tennessee gave him his first shot. They drafted him out of Liberty. He was talking at his locker earlier this week, and he didn't take any of that bait. He's like, no, not a revenge game. They gave me my first opportunity. They paid me. They drafted me. Deep down inside, though, there's got to be a little bit of that for Malik, like a little bit of get back. They traded him away. They did. They gave him his first shot. They believed him initially, and then they didn't. They traded him to Green Bay. Part of me wants to see the Malik Willis revenge game. And I think Green Bay can win with either quarterback this week under center. Obviously, your chances are vastly, vastly greater if it's Jordan Love. So I know that sounds weird. But if Love can't go, I'm cool with it because I'm like, hey, give him another week to rest. Try to sneak out and gut out a win with Malik Willis again. Again, you obviously want Jordan Love out there, but if it's Malik Willis, I'm not going to be like, oh, damn it. Jordan Love's out again. So we'll see how it goes. it'd be cool to see Willis go out there and get another win, this time against his former team in that stadium on the road. We'll see what Green Bay has going for him on Sunday. It is Mitch. I am on YouTube. Appreciate all the support as always. We'll see you next time.